Okay, so this question, I think 10 was like this, 15 is like this. Says area of a small triangle is 105 centimeters squared. Find x and y. Okay, x and y are what types of things? They're lengths, right? They're distances. Okay, they are, one-dimensional. We talked about that yesterday. Okay, so when I compare things, guys, I have to compare an area to an area or a distance to a distance. I cannot compare an area to a distance. Okay, that is an invalid thing to do at this moment. Does that make sense? Okay. So when I want to find x and y, those are distances. Whenever you want to find a distance, okay, write this down. Ask to find distance. You use the A over B ratio. Okay? Because it's A to the first power, B to the first power. They're one-dimensional. Okay? If you're asked to find an area, you use the A squared over B squared ratio because that is two-dimensional. Does that kind of make sense? All right? And hopefully those, because you know area is two-dimensional, hopefully because I see the powers of 2 there in that ratio, that tells you that those should go together. Excuse me. So in finding x and y, I know that I need to use A over B because those are distances. Okay? However, they're not explicit in this problem with what A over B is. And that's the case a lot of times. When doing these questions, they're not going to tell you, hey, scale factors, we did this in chapter 7. Find x and y if the scale factor is 2 to 3. They're not going to do that. Okay? Because that's doing the same thing over again. We've already learned in other chapters. So they're going to, if they want us to find a distance, they're going to tell you what the scale factor is through the use of A squared over B squared, through that ratio. Does that make sense? So they're going to imply what A over B is by providing you what A squared over B squared is. Or, if they ask you for an area, and you're going to use A squared over B squared to find that area, they're not going to tell you what A squared over B squared is. They're probably going to tell you what A over B is. They're going to give you the other thing. Does that make sense? Okay, they're going to give you the other ratio, and you're going to use that ratio then to help you determine what ratio you have to use. So, that being said, they give me the area of that one to be 105 centimeters squared. They don't give me the area of this one, right? But they do. They imply the area. They give me the components that I can use to multiply these things together, right? Okay? 1/2 BH. 1/2 BH should give me eventually 30 times 70, doesn't it? Half of 60 is 30. So is that 2100? Now do you know an area divided by an area? I say area of a small triangle divided by the area of the large triangle. Okay, that becomes 105 divided by 2100. Okay. Now, for the most part, these questions were all the numbers generated with areas where they worked well together. Okay, so this divides to be 1 over 20. Okay. Now, 1 over 20, that's an area compared to an area. That is this ratio right here. 1 over 20 is your A squared over B squared. Is that all right? Okay. But I'm never going to use A squared over B squared to find x and y because A squared over B squared only finds me areas, right? A squared over B squared only finds me areas. And in this question, I've already got that area. I've already got that area. So I don't need to find an area, right? I need to find distances. Okay? Well, distances use A over B. Okay, right there. if distances use a over b, but I have a squared over b squared, if I take the square root of that, does that give me a over b? Yeah, square root of a squared is a, square root of b squared is b. So should I take square root of this? What's square root of 1 give me? 1. And now if I square root 20, what's a perfect square that divides 20? 4. And it goes in 5 times, right? So would we agree that radical 20 is the same thing as 2 radical 5? So that's what I get for a over b. 1 divided by 2 radical 5. So how does that help me in finding x and y? Well, now I have my ratio that I'm allowed to use or that I need to use to find one-dimensional distances. And now this basically stems back to a Chapter 7 question. Chapter 7 would have said, if x compares to 60, but it compares in a 1 compared to a 1 over a 2 radical 5 ratio, that's your scale factor, can you find x? She would say x compares to 60, just like 1 compares to 2 radical 5. That makes sense, everyone? Just to save a little bit of time here, we do the same thing with y. Y should compare to what? 70, just like 1 compares to 2 radical 5. Now I know that I should use this fraction and not its reciprocal because x came from the smaller figure, right? So this numerator has to be a smaller number between these two. And 1 is smaller than 2 radical 5. Same thing down here. If I cross multiply, this will lead to x times 2 radical 5 is equal to 60. Okay, divide both sides by 2 radical 5. So x will be 60 divided by 2 root 5. I don't like that in that format, so I'll rationalize. Multiply by radical 5 over radical 5. Gives me 60 radical 5 over, what's 2 radical 5 times radical 5? Becomes 10, right? Radical 5 times radical 5 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. What's 60 divided by 10? 6. So 6 radical 5 is that distance of x. Now, the nice thing about that is we're going to do the same math down here with the 70. We should still get the same kind of work to occur here because we're using the same 1 divided by 2 radical 5. So I'll get y times 2 radical 5 is equal to 70. Y will be 70 divided by 2 radical 5. I need to rationalize that, right? What's 2 times radical 5 times radical 5? Yeah, it's that same 10. And up top you get 70 radical 5. So what's that going to reduce to? 7 radical 5. So y is 7 radical 5. Now here's my question. How can I check myself? We should know that the ratio of 6 square root of 5 to 60 should be the same exact ratio as 1 compared to 2 radical 5, right? That makes sense? That's our scale factor. So 1 divided by 2 square root of 5. Does that give me the same thing? Okay. And we should also know that 7 square root of 5 should relate to 70 in the same way. And it does. Okay. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay. Another way of viewing this is to say, you know, ultimately this thing here is 22% of that number, isn't it? Okay. Instead of saying it's
because this number here as a percentage is 0.22, whatever, so 22%. Does that help with that question? I think yesterday maybe we kind of mentioned this. Once I find, and you don't have to do this, but I just want to show you that the capability is there. That's your formula for area of a triangle, right? Once I find 6 radical 5, and once I know area is 105, could I put area to be 105 equal to 1/2? B, I don't know. B is y. But that distance is my x. That's 6 radical 5. H is 6 radical 5. Does that make sense to everybody? Could I then take, this is going to be 3 radical 5 times y equals 105. Does that make sense? Can I go 105 divided by 3 radical 5 is equal to y? And if I rationalize that, I get 105 radical 5 divided by, 15 in that case? Okay. 15 goes into 105. Anybody know how many times? 7. And that 7 radical 5, is it the same 7 radical 5 we found using maybe proportions? Does that make sense? I think a lot of people get lost, not maybe lost, but confused with formulas in the event that A equals 1/2 BH does solve for A. But if I know any of the two of the 3 variables that are in that formula, I can always solve for that third one, right? Okay. Hopefully you did a little bit of that work in Algebra 1 where they just gave you some random equation or random equation with a lot of variables in it, and you just solve for any of those variables. Okay. It's obviously written in terms of area because that's the thing that we're looking for the most. But if our interest was in solving for H, we could rewrite that formula as 2A divided by B will always give you H. So there's inside that formula, there's 3 formulas. Does that make sense? Like distance equals rate times time. Don't you guys work with that, find time and rate a lot? Okay. So there's 3 formulas there. So every time you get a formula, there's a lot of individual formulas kind of wrapped up inside it. But usually it's written because it's solve for the thing that we're interested in the most. And in this case, area. Are there any other questions in that assignment that you guys struggle with or got confused with? I think if you can do that one, you understand that one, you have a good grasp on the whole thing. That question is a question on your test.